Hello, my friends. On today's episode, I'm speaking with our guest, John Franklin, who's back on the podcast. Many of you know him as the co-founder of Kilo, which we're always talking about this podcast. And we're talking about marketing today. He talks about the three most valuable strategies when it comes to marketing for gyms. So if you're looking to up your marketing game, keep on listening. This episode is for you. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business of Unicorns podcast. And today I have a true legend in our midst. It's John Franklin. If you don't know John, he's been on the podcast before, so where the hell have you been? Go listen to past episodes. He's the co-founder of Kilo, which you hear us talk about all the fucking time on this podcast. And he's the kind of head rainmaker over at Kilo and at Two Brains. And so he's a busy man, and I'm really grateful that you're here. So welcome, Sir John Franklin.
It's been too long since I've had a conversation with you, Michael Keeler, and I'm excited to talk with your guys because we always have, they're just so smart. Like you just work with, you have a small group, but they're very advanced and they just kind of get it. You really like drill culture into them. You drill the important stuff. And so we can talk on a higher level, which is always fun to do. So how can I help your audience today?
Well, thank you for that. It means a lot coming from you. And I think we are really picky about the gym owners we work with. And I'm sure our listeners on the podcast recognize that we like to talk about some deep shit. But I'm so excited to have you because you're a man who is like really immersed in the industry. Like you have your fingers in a lot of pies, and you have over the years, from being a gym owner yourself to starting gym software to being part of a coaching group. I mean, you really have seen the industry from all angles. So it's always such a value add to have you on this podcast because you can talk about it from all different sides. And so, but I want to talk about the thing that you're really focused on the most these days, which is marketing. I mean, that's mainly, what Kilo is helping people do. And a lot of our Unicorns members are Kilo members. And so I want to talk about, of all the conversations you've been having lately with your users at Kilo, with gym owners that you work with, what are the things you've been learning about marketing? Like what's really working lately? Like what are the new things that have popped up, the exciting stories you've heard about people who are really crushing in marketing? What are they doing these days that's working?
The same thing that they've always been doing. And so that may be a boring response to hear, but the reality is, especially in the business coaching world, there is a need for novelty, especially at the top of funnel, right? So you're seeing a lot of stuff called like for AI, and you're seeing a lot of stuff with like, you should do ads on TikTok. And there's always like the shiny object because that stuff works from a marketing standpoint, just getting attention. But the reality is, if you actually talk to the people who are crushing it in the gym space, the 7-figure gyms and the people who've been sustaining that 7-figure run rate for a long period of time and holding a decent profit margin, their strategies aren't very complicated. So I have a show called Gym World that Mark Fisher of BFU is on very frequently. And we have a lot of conversations with successful gym owners on there. And so like when we really break it down, there's really only 3 things you got to do. You got to get some attention. You have to start conversations, and you got to close, right? So the thing I say is more conversations equals more conversions. And so whatever the medium by which you start those conversations is, it's fine. It just has to be like repeatable, and you got to be good at it, right? And so when we went back and looked at some of the data, there were like 3 primary strategies that people did. It was either sell by chat, so outbound, just DMing people. 2 was your bread and butter Facebook ads. And 3 was an organic content strategy, usually run through Instagram. And we can break down all 3 of them. We can go into one of them. But what I want to say here is the most successful gym owners I speak with really only do 1 or 2 of these really well. You don't have to do all 3 if you want to run like a hyper profitable, successful gym. You just have to find the one that works, the one that's in your wheelhouse, and just really drive the shit out of it. Like for us, when we were operating, we did no sell by chat. We did no organic content, but we were absolute savages at Facebook ads. And it was like the golden era. And we just ran that into the ground and were able to scale up 5 gyms using that one thing. And I know people in BFU who they do 0 paid ads, and they only
Yep.
do organic content, and they do a couple DMs on their Instagram, and they use that, and they're able to generate, you know, $20,000-$30,000 a month of profit from
Yep.
just doing that. And, you know, and they couldn't tell you how to get into Business Manager, right? And so
It's true.
we can break down each one, and we
Yeah.
can talk a little bit about it,
Well,
or we
I
can
just
go
love
into
that
one
already, right?
specific.
Because I think that already that's a great lesson to our listeners. I think many people need to hear that, right? Which is, one, is that the marketing process doesn't have to be so fucking complicated, right? You need to get people's attention, have conversations, and close them, right? Like that's the funnel, right? Doesn't need to be that complicated, and you don't need to be good at 5 different things. You don't need to have an old school marketing mix of a dozen strategies, right? Be really good at 1 or 2 of these things, and that's what some of the best gyms are doing. So I think that in of itself is a great takeaway for our listeners. But yeah, let's dive in a little bit. Let's start with just the outbound DMing strategy, because I think there's probably some listeners who heard about it, have dabbled a little bit. But the thing I see when people try this is they try it for a little while. They're not very consistent about it. They decide in a few weeks it doesn't work because they haven't been consistent and done enough volume. So, you know, when people are using the DM strategy, what's kind of key to making it actually produce results?
All right. So consistency, you said it, but there's consistency, and there's also speed of response, right?
Yeah.
You have to treat inbound, or you have to treat every opportunity to outbound, like to do an outbound reach out, as like a hot lead coming through the funnel. So the easiest way to do it is, if you're posting Instagram content semi-regularly, you have consistent follower growth, is simply reaching out to new followers, right? This is somebody who found your page, they raised your hand, they followed your content, and just offering them like a simple AB offer. So you could just be like, hey, I'm Keeler. I am one of the fitness associates at Mark Fisher Fitness. You know, we're a gym for people who hate gyms. Thanks for following. You want to come in and try a free class? We have them in the morning or at night. And that's it. Like, that's the whole flow. And
Yep.
if you've never done any type of outbound before, you can do this to old followers as well, right? You're not going to have the same type of response rate, but like, yeah, you guys at Mark Fisher, you create a lot of content, you have a
Yep.
lot of followers, and those are leads, you know, especially for you guys, because you guys sell, you guys still do the online stuff as well, right?
Yep.
So literally everyone who follows that page is a potential lead. And the same way you would on a Facebook ad, you would call those leads as quickly as humanly possible. The same goes for Instagram. As someone follows, someone comments, someone engages with the page, you reach out as quickly as humanly possible, and you just ask them to come in and try a class, or for you know, whatever your offer is. I believe you guys do like do you still do an LBO?
Yeah, we still have a low bar offer. Ours, I think right now is 21 days, but we play around and change it all the time. And I think most listeners that I know and listen to this podcast, most Unicorn City members, all have an LBO, which is the perfect thing to offer. It's a perfect thing to offer in this DM strategy. You don't need to make up something new. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just offer a way for them to try you out. I think it's really smart. The objection I hear to that sometimes, John, is, well, they're just following us. I don't want to ask them for a sale right away. What do you say to those folks?
Just do a free intro, so there's no sale. It's like,
Great.
Hey, come in for a free class, give them, you know, some hybrid of a little workout and then a consultation at the end. And if you don't want to be super salesy, that's fine. But they're coming into your gym, they have a problem. So like, you know, if there was a time to be salesy, that would be it. You know, they followed your page. But yeah, you don't need to ask for, hey, buy my $200 thing. You know, just figure out a system by which people can come in, try a class, or like a little one-on-one session if you want to create something like that, and then at the end pitch into your LBO or like a full membership, whatever it is that you do to get people started in your gym.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tell them too. It's good to hear it from another voice. Like, yeah, well then if you don't want to sell, just give it to them for free, but get them in your fucking doors so you can get to start that conversation and build a relationship. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about old school Facebook ads. Some people are like, Facebook's dead. We should just be doing Google ads. What do you say?
All right, before we go there, let's close the loop. You know,
Sure.
a couple things. Instagram caps out at around like 50 to 100 messages a day. So if you're someone who's like, okay, I'm going to go run this strategy right now and DM all my old Instagram followers, just make sure to like start off slowly and then ramp up. One thing to be cognizant of, because I don't want people to go get like their DMs frozen and yell at me. And then let's just like talk about the math real quick, because it's boring work, right? It's a grind. And I do feel strongly that the gym owner should do it first before handing it off. Some people who are like, it doesn't work, like they'll hire someone or tell their front desk person to like start DMing people, but they won't have any like performance metrics to know, like, if you send 100 DMs, this is how many will respond, this is how many will turn into calls, and this is what they'll close at. So or how long that even takes, right? So at least for the first like 300 to 500 messages, I think I feel very strongly that the gym owner should do that and then hand off. But like, let's talk about like some general high level math. If you get like 50 followers and you're diligent, you're responding quickly, and you got a decent flow, like you should get about 10 responses, which should lead to in the neighborhood of 3 calls, 2 maybe show up, 1 close. And for a front end revenue, like you should be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $600 plus. Like you don't want to sell anything less than that on the front end. I don't know how you guys teach them to stack their offers on the front end, but if it's anything less than that, don't listen to this podcast, go like adjust your front end offer. And that should only take you 3 hours, right? So if you got like minimum $600, the cheapest thing you should sell on the front end, divide that by 3 hours of work, that's like $200 an hour. So I would imagine, unless you are absolutely crushing it, there are a few areas of your business where you can make $200 an hour.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. And I appreciate taking a moment to kind of break down the math, because I think people need to get in touch with that reality if they're going to use this strategy. They need to know they have to grind every day consistently, respond quickly, and they need to go through 50 people for what will be probably 1 actual sale, right? And that sometimes feels like it doesn't work. And I love that what you're saying is, no, that's it working. That's actually the win, right?
Right.
So I think people, they balk at that, right? They balk at like, I'm going to do all that work for 1, but yeah, do the math, right? It actually is a great use of your time, and I think the thing that underlays this is that if you want a fresh 50 people to be reaching out to on a regular basis, you need to be putting out lots of content. You need to be putting out lots of content to get people's attention. And that's, I think, another place where I see people get hung up.
Well, you need to be putting out some, right? And you can also drive followers through ads. There are different strategies you can do there. Again, like I said, my wheelhouse is paid, but we can talk about some of the content strategies I've seen that people recommend. The simplest and easiest one, especially if you have somebody at the front desk. I got this from a guy named Nick Page. He just has like his front desk person take a couple pictures of the class and tag all the members in the class. And he does that like really consistently, because, if you're like a 45-year-old mom, like how frequently is somebody being like, Deborah's killing it, and giving you like, positive, saying nice things about you, you post it, and then who sees that? Her 45-year-old mom friends. And so they may follow, and boom, there's another lead. So that was something that I thought was like pretty easy to implement, especially if you just have somebody like sitting on their hands at the front desk. Yeah. And to your point, like, yes, it's a slog, right? But if you think like you're like, what's the average unicorn society lifetime value for a customer? You got any idea?
I mean, it's thousands of dollars, right? It's, I'm sure it's somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000 easily, probably more in many cases.
Wow, that's insane. Okay, that's way better than the average gym owner. But let's say it's 3. Let's take the low end of that.
Yeah.
If you're getting 1 new member from this strategy a month, that's $36,000 a year, and that's something. And most of that's going to fall right down to the bottom line, right? And so I think for most gym owners, an extra 36,000 that falls mostly to the bottom line is like a life-changing amount of profit. Yeah. Right. And so
100%.
Let's say it's a 3 to 5 hours of grunt work a month to change your life. It's probably worth it.
The other thing I love about this strategy is that, we have I work with a handful of gyms who are, still in the first few years where they're a little tight on cash. They haven't gotten their profit margins where they want. Their rates are maybe still a little bit low. And they don't have a lot of money to play with for marketing. And this is a strategy that costs basically no money and can deliver really great results. I mean, it's probably going to be lighted on fire a little more if you have some money to spend and you're doing, some ads, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But I love this for folks who are, still in those early stages of growing and maybe don't have a ton of cash to throw at marketing. You probably got time, and if not, make the damn time, because this is a great way to get people in the door without having to burn a boatload of cash.
Yeah, and I know people who do like true outbound, so just ice cold, like people who don't follow your page. So that would be like outbound in the truest sense. I don't know anybody who's making millions off of ice cold. Like everyone who runs this strategy well and has done it consistently that I know personally has an element of organic content that brings people in, and then they usually will start the conversation after they like, comment, follow, some sort of engagement with the page. So it's an easy intro. But that's not to say like, yeah, if you are a broke, struggling gym owner and your gym's about to close, like, yeah, get a targeted tag on Instagram and just go to town on those people. And like, that's better than just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. Yeah, well said. Okay, let's transition and talk a little bit about paid ads. I know this has been your go-to strategy, especially, in the heyday of paid Facebook ads. This was like a real gold mine. Less of a gold mine these days, but I still think very valuable. So what do you say?
I say, yeah, it still works. Like of the people I speak with who are still operating gyms and did well ads 5 years ago, they're still doing well with ads today. Mm-hmm. Like the most common objection I hear is like, Facebook ads don't work. And that's obviously like not true, because plenty of people still have success with them. There are coaching companies that do 8 figures just teaching people how to do them. They may not work for you, but that doesn't mean they don't work. And that typically means something's off with your funnel. So that may be the pricing, the offer, the targeting, and most likely lead nurture, right? And I just like still bread and butter 6-week challenge. Like there's a guy we spoke with on our show. His name's Jack Wheeler. He runs 2 gyms in Alberta, Canada. Both of them, he came up with us the MPE days back when that was a thing. I think they are still a thing, kind of.
I think so.
Yeah. And so, he was running the same time as us. And we asked him like, hey, you still having success with Facebook? He says, yes. And he's like, what'd you change? It's like, absolutely nothing. And the reality is like, I have some photos here. I'll send them to you after the fact. Keeler, if you got an editor, you can stitch them in. They're of like 6-week challenge ads that were from like the 1960s, from like magazines, with the exact same copy that like we're using today, right? Which is that I'm looking for number of target customers that want a dream outcome in short time period. And so when I say 6-week challenge, it can be a 21-day thing, a 6-week thing, a 90-day thing, like whatever that is. The dream outcomes usually transform your body, and then the target customers is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5 to 10 is what I see all the time. And it just works. Like if you got it dialed in, like it doesn't work as well, but it works. And so typically the second thing that people say after I've convinced them that like, hey, it probably does work, you just need to change some stuff around, is they'll say like, challenges are bad, or like the challenge mentality is bad, right? And to that, I like to say maybe, but like you got to give them some short-term wins in order to gain their trust. And once you have their trust, like they'll do whatever you tell them. Right. If you start with some really boring fitness program that takes a while to see any results, they're going to be gone by the time, you earn their trust. They're going to be on to the next thing. They're going to be, because typically if you're the type of people you target for something like that, they're going to be people who are hopping from class to class to class, from thing to thing. And you got to show them you got the sauce before you start injecting some of the slower, more boring stuff that we all know works really well.
Yeah, well, I think that's so smart, John, honestly. And people don't pay attention enough to that initial experience being one where they have some small wins. Because not only is people's primary fear like just looking stupid when they go in the gym or not knowing what to do or, standing out or being embarrassed, but they also think it's not going to work for them. So you have to make them make some friends and learn that this actually can work for you. You can do this and can get results. If they're not getting that in the first few weeks, right, then you're just not going to keep them, right? Like, so I think that's where I think the challenge mentality can be helpful. And it's not that different than how many people are positioning their low barrier offer. Or if your low barrier offer is longer than a week or two, then it's often you're talking about it like a challenge, right? Like a quick start program. And I think that overcomes the two biggest fears people have going into a gym. So I think it's a smart lesson. I hope our listeners are, writing it down and making sure that their offer is really checking those boxes.
And there's a million different ways to run a 6-week challenge, but
Yeah.
they're in the right place because you and Fisher have run one of the most successful runs of 6-week challenges in the
Yes.
history of like the coaching industry with your snatch program. Right.
It even
And
surprises us. Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely bonkers, the numbers and prices and results that you guys have got from that program. So BFU people are in a great spot where they get to just like, they can just like study the sauce here. But like, if you look at the building blocks of what you guys are doing on the front end, it's like
Yes.
the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. It's just got a little more brand and personality and culture and all the stuff that kind of makes your gym great. But like on the surface, if you're just studying the fundamentals, like you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, which is what I see a lot of people trying to do. It's like, oh, Facebook ads don't work, or this challenge mentality doesn't work, or whatever. So they're going to try their own kind of like lifestyle in a year, like basically
Mm-hmm.
just try and reinvent the laws of marketing. Where you and Fisher were smart. We're like, okay, maybe we don't agree with everything here, like, but we're just going to do it. We know it works. And then once they're in the gym, we know we can kind of like
Yeah.
give them what they need in order to succeed over the long term.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%. So, okay, so we talked a little bit about outbound strategies and DMing people. We talked about how that's, you have to really put in the numbers there to get some results. We talked about running ads, and the key message here is it still fucking works. You got to figure out whether you need to be on Facebook or Instagram or maybe TikTok, but running digital ads on social media can be valuable as long as you are really attracting people to get some wins early on. And really, and then there's a third strategy you mentioned. Let's maybe dive into that.
Well, I want to close the loop there.
I love it. You're the loop closer today.
Meta
I
is
love it.
still Meta, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. That's still the main game in town, right?
Yeah, I think the only asterisk I'll put to this is that more and more, this is thanks to Pete Dupuis in Business for Unicorns. We work with a lot of sports performance gyms, and a lot of sports performance gyms cater to teenagers, youth athletes, and they're not on Facebook. Most of them are actually not even on Instagram. Those are the only folks I'm talking to. So you all listen up. Some of you need to be on TikTok, right? Some of you just got to be on TikTok if you want to get the teens' attention. If you want to get the adults' attention, sure. Their parents are on Facebook still, right? But if you want to get their attention, you just have to be on TikTok. But I think they're probably the exception, because I think most folks' avatar, at least in Unicorn Society, is 30, 40-year-old folks who are still Instagrammers.
Pretty crazy that Luddite Pete Dupuis is leading the charge for TikTok. Hard to hear those words coming out of your mouth.
To be fair, I don't even know if Pete has a TikTok account. Does he? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still waiting for a response from a text message I sent on May 7th, Pete. So if you're listening, it's in your inbox whenever you choose to look at it.
Just dragging Pete on this podcast. To be fair, Pete, just a quick shout out. I actually don't have a TikTok account, so I don't live in a glass house here.
I do think that's a fair point, right? So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Like I cater to, like, we're talking Gen Pop here. So sports
totally.
performance, which I guess is probably because of Pete and Eric and all them, that may be a larger size. But again, just implement it and make it just like a little more Gen Z, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, you should be like, I don't know. Gone are the days where you could get leads for like $5. Like that's when we started, we were getting like challenge leads for that. Now, it's anywhere between $30 to $100, depending on what type of market and you're creative and all that. But like, again, if you got that offer at the 600 plus range and you're pretty consistent, like that's still a workable lead cost, right?
Yeah.
When I talk to gym owners, most gym owners don't have a lead problem. They have a lead nurture problem. And there's data to back this up, right? I think the biggest thing that most gym owners aren't doing is calling their leads. And it's something I've been saying for like 5 or 6 years. And it's, it just works. I am a weirdo. I like to opt into every 6-week challenge ad I get. I like to opt into all the business guru stuff. My Facebook profile is a hellscape of that stuff.
It would be my greatest nightmare, but I'm so glad that you're doing it for all of us.
Someone's got to be the crash test dummy, and it's me. And a lot of people are paying. I'm in a pretty expensive market, so I'm in South Florida. So that's probably a $30 to $50 a lead market, one of the most competitive from a saturation standpoint. And so these people are paying $50 a lead. I put my phone number in. I'll never get a call from them. I'll get a text. I'll get a lot of texts. I'll get a lot of emails using a software like Gym Lead Machine, or an agency or whatever. But the reality is, if everyone's doing that, you don't stand out that way, right? Yep. And so there was a study conducted by a BYU professor, and he studied 100,000 outbound call attempts. And this was in B2B, so B2C may be slightly different. But he found that the odds of qualifying a lead are 21 times greater if contact's made within 5 minutes versus just 30 minutes after a lead comes in. You stretch it out, it's 7x. Yeah. I mean, well, it gets crazier. So like 1 hour versus 2 hours, you're 7x more likely if you call within the first hour. And then 1 hour versus 24 hours is 60x. So 24 hours plus. And I would guess most people get a lead and they don't treat it like a fire, like an emergency, like they need to drop everything and call that person. But honestly, if you're not where you want to be in your gym, like that is aside from giving clients great service and getting them results, like that is priority number one from a business growth standpoint.
Yeah, 100%. And it's absolutely the way to stand out, because you're right. These days, more and more gyms are having access to good software, in some cases, great software, and they have a lot of tools to follow up with people, and they're just not. And if they are, and you're amongst a small group of people who are following up quickly and effectively, they're probably not calling. I mean, I just tried to join a gym in, where I live upstate. And it was hard to get anyone to call me back. It was really tough. And I was like, y'all are begging for leads, but you're just not doing the work to create the relationships and engage. You got to pick up the phone, leave a lot of voicemails. Yeah. But I think that's really smart. I think you're right that a lot of folks don't necessarily have a lead problem. They have a lead nurture problem. I think that can easily be solved by, just a really good, consistent, simple script that you follow to follow up with folks. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even, it's do it. Like most people aren't.
You don't even need a script. Just actually pick up the phone and push call. It doesn't even matter if you have a script for that. Ideally you should, right? But actually, and if they respond back,
like the Armageddon, like the worst case, they respond back with a text, and fine, you're texting them anyway. Like boom, boom, boom. But the call shows initiative. It shows it's a real person. People are accustomed to receiving like automated text now, and kind of like email was 5 years ago, where everyone is kind of numb to it and knows what it is, and that's over. And if you go to like a competitive industry, a competitive commoditized sales industry, everyone's still calling, right? Like you go and you try and buy a car today, and you put your email or you put your phone number in a form, you can bet like your phone is going to ring off the hook
every day,
mortgage,
twice a day,
insurance.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
And that's because they have this data. They know like they call you really quickly, and they call you up to 6 times, and they have a ton of calendar availability that is going to increase the likelihood of you buying from them. And if it's a big ticket purchase, like all that extra effort matters. And for gyms, it's still a big ticket purchase. Like if you're in this group, you're listening to this podcast, you have a $3,000 to $5,000 like lifetime value of a client. It's a big ticket purchase. You just got to work it for 3 years to extract that value. But man, if you think of it that way, like, if I call this person, I'm going to get the equivalent of like a used Toyota Corolla. If I can close them, like just call them 5 minutes faster, put my sandwich down. Like, it's a no-brainer.
That's it. Well, I think, also want to right size this for listeners. If you're like, listen, I'm on the floor all day. If you're the gym owner that's still on the floor coaching all day, you barely have the energy to like check your email once a day, right? Like, I can't possibly respond within 5 minutes every lead. As you heard from John, right? So, okay, well, just respond a little faster than you've been, right? Or responding at all is a good start. And then if you can do it within 24 hours, within 12 hours, within 5 hours, and I promise everyone on listening to this call has the ability to respond within a couple hours. None of you work in an emergency room. None of you are on the floor for more than 3 or 4 hours at a time if you're on the floor. Like, you have the ability. And if not, you can hire cheap help these days to get some people to do some of this with you. You're not going to get a trained salesperson for a few bucks per hour, but you can find some help to make initial phone calls or send some texts. So I think this is within everyone's, within the realm of possibility for everyone listening.
And personally, I would sub out coaching before I would sub out sales, right? Because you can get a lot of, like, you can find somebody who can care like you do for your clients. But it's going to be tough to find somebody for 20, 30 bucks an hour who's going to care about the growth of your business like you do. And 100%. If you don't, like, go get a job working for Michael Keeler, because you got it if you want to get out of the hood.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we have to start wrapping things up now, but I want to at least get to the third strategy you wanted to mention. So, how do we summarize that in a few minutes here?
We'll go quick. So the third strategy plays on the first strategy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's creating the actual content to get people to know, like, trust you, follow you, and the best person I found for creating content calendars and having a pretty smart content strategy is Business for Unicorns Society member of Business for Unicorns, Cassie Day. And I think she does an incredible job of understanding who she serves and creating content that speaks to that audience. And
shout out to Cassie. Yeah, I mean, Cassie's been a Unicorn Society member for a bunch of years now. She's up in Canada, and for those of you who want to, just go follow her and see the great work she's doing. Her business is All Day Fit, and she's doing incredible work. Yeah, so keep on going, John. What do you like about her strategy?
So her big things, like, don't rely on motivation. So don't show up to the computer that day and think, like, what am I going to write for social media? Because life gets in the way and we're doing a million things, and that's just an error for failure. So she typically has like a planning session once a month where she builds out a content calendar with 4 weeks of content. And then there'll be themes. Typically there'll be like seasonal themes, right? From my understanding, she's doing like a F the beach body theme now, because we're going into summer and you should be, looking good all year round. And so the thing is, when you map out the content like that, it makes it really easy to see what type of assets you make, or what type of assets you need to make. And so what she'll do from there is she'll create basically like a list, and she turns that into a photo shoot. And she has like a machine that she does. She's got 4 bodies there at the actual like photo shoot. She'll pick like 3 to 10 of her members, and then she'll have one person making photos, one person making vertical videos, a third person doing testimonials, and she's just shuttling people from thing to thing. And one thing worth mentioning is, when a lot of people start with their content strategy, they're like, I'm going to go on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, and I'm going to start a podcast and a newsletter. Like, one thing that comes up over and over and over again is pick one platform and dominate it. So hers is Instagram. I know people who are still absolutely crushing it on Facebook Blue, right? Like, if you have an older audience, like, you can still do like really well on just like the classic bread and butter of Facebook. And if you're an advanced tech genius like Pete Dupuis, you do TikTok. And but whatever serves you best, whatever's in your wheelhouse. But the most
go
ahead.
I was just gonna I love ragging on Pete, but also the most important part is, I think, the thing you initially said, which is most people's strategy is, what do I feel like posting today? And like, it's such a fucking wrong recipe, right? And I love Cassie's, and we try and get a lot of our Unicorn Society members to have like a monthly planning session with themselves for planning out their content. And if you all want to email me, we have a very simple template for planning out your social content. Email me, michael@businessofunicorns.com, and I'll send it to you. It's very simple. But the idea is, with just an hour or 2 a month, Cassie can do a photo shoot that's a month's worth of content. with just like an hour or two of like just well-planned people in a room with some phones, you can have a month of content, and so I just think that's just such a superior, more efficient use of your time, and doesn't leave you with that constant nagging feeling of like, oh crap, what am I going to post? Oh crap, I'm not posting enough. Oh crap, I have to think of some ingenious new thing tomorrow. It's like, no, plan it, sit down at a moment where you have fresh mind, fresh energy with a team of other people who can help brainstorm with you, and decide in advance what you're going to do. It just gives such peace of mind, and you'll make better content because of it. You'll make better content. So like, I'm so glad you pulled out Cassie, because I think it's a shining example of how a little bit of planning is just makes it epically better.
Yeah. And you only need to be like 30% as good as her to kind of like dominate a local market, like especially if it's a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 city. Like she's in Toronto, so she's got to compete with like a bunch of, it's same as you guys in New York. Like the quality there standing out there is a little bit tougher, but if you're in Toledo, Ohio, like, and you're making stuff that's 1/3 as good as what she's making, like it's still going to be miles ahead of what the average person around you is probably churning out, and it should be good enough to drive followers to your Instagram, which you should be DMing. And like we said, more conversations equals more conversions.
I think the other key to Cassie's success and others like her, and you said this early on too, is that she really knows who she's talking to. She really knows what her audience cares about. She knows who her avatar is. So her content is always driven around, how do we serve this person, this kind of person? What are the challenges? What are the needs? What do they care about? What's a thumb-stopping piece of content for that person? And that's a really important lens. If not, you're just kind of, just swinging in the dark. And so I think that's another piece that people get wrong, is they just are not clear enough on their avatar. So they're doing whatever their trainers are interested in talking about that week. And like, that's not a good strategy most of the time.
So the rebuttal I hear most frequently for someone like Cassie or like you guys who are in a large city and can target, hey, that's great if you're in a city with like 1 to 3 million people and you can target this really specific set of people and there's enough of them to provide you some business. But I'm in town XYZ and we only have 50,000 people, and if I targeted this type of person, I could never get big. Like, what would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I think the important thing when thinking about an avatar is that doesn't have to be a crazy, narrow, specific kind of person. But when you think about your top 3, your top 5 favorite long-term, most loyal clients, what you want to look at is, what is the Venn diagram of the things they have in common? What are the things that they all care about? And it's this fictitious kind of amalgam of all these kind of qualities that most of your clients care about. Do they care about the environment being fun or competitive? Do they care about it being affordable, or the quality of your trainers? There's a whole slew of things your clients can care about. And the reality is you just can't market to all of that. You have to narrow it down. The way you narrow it down is making a list of your top 3 to 5 most loyal, badass clients that you love working with, and thinking about, what do they all have in common? Because I promise that, like, the 65-year-old, grandma who's retired has some stuff in common with the 30-year-old person who just finished grad school and is in their first full-time job. They have some shit in common. Their life might look very different, but they might care about some of the same things. And that's the stuff you want to hone in on if you're going to get their attention. Anything you would add to that?
I'd put like one asterisk there and say like Mike Michalowicz has this book called The Pumpkin Plan. And so he recommends like 2 columns. Column 1 is like the loyal badass, like your favorite people to work with. Every time they come in the door, they smile. And then the second column, so list out 10 of those. And then the second column is the people who pay you the most.
That's good.
You circle the people who are on both. And then the people who are circled on both, that's like your thing there. 'Cause I know a lot of like in CrossFit, especially, like a lot of CrossFits love their, or at least back in the day, this is kind of like outdated now, but they love their like competitive CrossFitters, and they were the most fun people to work with, but they paid the least. They took up the most space. They were in the gym the longest. They were just like absolutely terrible from a business standpoint. They intimidated all the new members. And obviously these are huge generalizations here.
Sure.
But yeah,
it's good to note there's a balance, right? It can be like the fun people, the outgoing, the super connectors, the ones that like light up a room, and also the ones who got deep pockets and pay you consistently and bring their whole family. And right, there's other things that you care about that make them your favorite client. And I think that's a really good point. I love that. Right.
Yeah,
I love that.
that's my one tip there, because yeah, a lot of people have favorite clients, but they're sometimes not the. If you had a gym full of them, it would be a terrible gym to work out of.
Not the most profitable clients. Yeah, I love
Exactly.
that. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. I know we covered a lot of ground today. So, I mean, if you were to go back of all the things we told our listeners they should be thinking about and all the strategies we pointed out, what do you say is the first step for all of them? If they're looking at this landscape, all these 3 strategies that we talked about, how do they figure out what's right for them and how to get started?
The TLDR, the TED Talk is more conversations equals more conversions,
Yep.
right? Like that's all it boils down to. If you are not happy with where you are in your gym, if you're not making enough money, like it's just a matter of how many conversations are you having with prospects, right?
Love it.
And so, and track that number. And
Yep.
so, if that number is going up, and your sales are not going up, you go ahead and contact me, and I will work with you for $0. But
Yeah.
I guarantee if you are truly tracking it and that number is going up consistently, so will your sales.
Yeah. Well said.
Right.
Well said, my friend. I think it's not that easy, but it's that simple. Right. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you have to put in the hard work, but it is that simple. More conversations, no matter how you have them, have more of them, and you will convert more people. This was a great conversation, my friend. I think we covered a lot of ground, so many great takeaways. How do people learn more about Kilo? How about you? If they want to follow you in the world, get more John Franklin in their life, how do they find you on the interwebs?
So use kilo.com.
Mm-hmm.
Go there. Let us build you a website, maybe some marketing automation software, maybe some gym management software. Been hearing good things. And if you want to follow me, I have a podcast called Gym World Worldwide, where we interview some of the most successful people in the fitness industry on the planet. And then all my socials are John is Building. You can just go to johnisbuilding.com and you can find me there. But I like to hang out on Twitter with all the weirdos.
Yeah, so fellow weirdos, go find John on Twitter and go check out usekilo.com. I've said a million times in this podcast, we have Unicorn Study members who more and more are moving over to Kilo, and every single one of them has only good things to say. And that's really rare when it comes to gym software. And so y'all are doing a lot right. Thank you for making the product better and better all the time, and for serving our clients so well, because they really are loving it. So I hope more of our listeners go find you and sign the hell up today. Thanks for a great chat, friends. Listeners, if you love this podcast, leave us a 5-star review everywhere you listen, and email me. Let me know who you want me to talk to next and what you want me to talk about. It's michael@businessforunicorns.com. Thank you, Sir John Franklin.
Bye-bye.